All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about Module 8. All right, when you're going to start solving some equations, dealing with some more traditional algebra. All right, first part of the assignment under quiz is determining if a value is in fact a solution. To do that, all you're going to do is plug in. So, for example, even though we really haven't talked about x squared yet, which is right there, all right, in the beginning when it say is x equals 4 solution, all you're going to do is plug in, which means we're going to replace all the x's with the value 4. All right, so when I look at 5x squared minus 3, it's going to be 5 times 4 squared minus 3. From our order of operations, 4 squared is 16. 16 times 5 is 80. 80 minus 3 results in 77. When I plug in 4 on the other side, we multiply that times 4. 11 times 4 gives me 44. 44 plus the 3 also gives me 77. So yes, x equals 4 is in fact a solution. All right, so don't get discouraged by if they put information in there that you haven't done yet. All right, I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. All right, it's not going to change anything. With regards to solving equations, all right, general rule, whatever you do to one side, you're going to do to the other. All right, which means if you have a happy face that you add to both sides, as long as you do it to both sides, it's fine. All right, so whatever you do to both sides. Now, all right, handling fractions, there's two different ways of going about it. X, the first one down here, x divided by 3 equals 12. X is being divided by 3. To get rid of a division by 3, you would multiply both sides by 3. All right, that will cancel out those 3's. Hopefully you watched the video. 12 times 3 would be 36. So when the variable's in the numerator, the constant's in the denominator, you can just divide by it. Now, if they switch their roles, 3 over x equals 12. All right, I would suggest turning it into what we call a proportion. To do that, we put the 12 over 1. To solve proportions, we cross multiply, which means you multiply 3 times 1 and set that equal to the other cross multiplication, which is 12 times x. All right, 3 times 1 is, of course, 3, equals 12x. Divide by 12, 3 over 12 equals x, which would be written as either 1/4 or 0.25, depending upon the instructions. All right. I don't want it to save. Okay, so now do this. All right, for all equations, the general thing I tell people, the order you use, number 1 is to undo any parentheses. So if we looked at this equation, 8 times 3m minus 3 plus 12m equals 7m minus 9. Undo a parentheses means you do the distributive law. So 8 times 3m would be 24m minus 8 times 3, which is 24, plus 12m equals 7m minus 9. So I'd get rid of all parentheses. Next thing is to combine like terms. That would be variables on the same side of the equal sign. All right, you can put together from previous studies, 24m plus 12m gives me 36m minus 24 equals what's left, which is the 7m minus 9. Now, if you want to avoid negative numbers, this is important. You want to subtract the smaller variable from both sides. What I mean by that is this. Over here, we got a 36M. Over there, we have a 7M. 7M is smaller than 36M, so we're going to subtract 7M from both sides. When I do that over here, that's going to cancel out your 7M's. 36 minus 7 is 29. So that's going to give me 29M minus 24. All right, equals -9. Don't forget about your signs. Now, I tell my students to get rid of all additions and subtractions. All right, it reduces your need for fractions. So this is a minus 24. So I would add 24 to both sides. All right, again, that'll cancel out that. So you'll have 29M. All right, equals 15. And then your last step that's not mentioned here, we got rid of all additions and subtractions. Then you're going to get rid of all multiplications and divisions. 29M is seen as 29 times M. All right, I would divide both sides by 29. All right, so that when we were done with all that, left with 29M equals 15. If I divide both sides by 29, I get my final answer, which is 15 over 29. So M equals 15 over 29 when I'm all said and done. All right, so that's generally how I would handle all equations. All right, now I come back here to the rest of the notes on this. All right. So now we're going to talk about handling a negative. All right, remember when it's 5 minus x equals -10, the variable, not the constant, is a negative. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. All right, that's going to cancel out that, but please remember that that's a negative x. 10 minus 5 is 5. And then that's a negative in front, so we would divide both sides by -1. Recall that when we worked with sign numbers, when we divide by a negative, we just flip our sign. So x equals -5. All right. When you have a fraction in front of the variable, like 7/5 x equals 21, you can handle it two ways. All right. One way is in two steps. What I mean by that is this. 7/5 is read as by division by 5, so we can multiply both sides by 5. Cancels out the 5s there. You're still going to have the 7. 7x is 21 times 5, which is 105. You then would divide by the 7, and you get your final answer, which is 15. So x equals 15. If you don't want to do that, all right, if we come down here, 7/5 x. X equals 21. If you'd like, you can do both of those steps mentioned earlier once by multiplying by what we call the reciprocal. The reciprocal of the fraction, all right, is just the flip of it. The 5s will cancel out because 5 divided by 5 is 1. The 7s cancel out because 7 divided by 7 is 1. And then you do the multiplication. X equals 21 times 5 over 7. If you want, you can divide first. The advantage there is it makes your numbers smaller. 21 divided by 7 would be 3. And 3 times 5 would still give you the 15. So you can handle the fraction either way you'd like. All right, last up, if I can get it. All right, new. I'm going to talk about percent. All right, when we talk about percent, whenever you see the word of, it means multiplication. Whenever you see the word is, it's equals. And whenever you see the term what, it is a variable. So, for example, in the first one, all right, number one, what is 30% of 80? What is your variable is x. Is your equal sign, so that equals 30%. Remember, we turn into the decimal equivalent of his multiplication, which is 80. And then you would just multiply 80 times 0.3 and you would get 24. When we look at the second one, what percent of 35 is 7? What, remember, is x? All right. Of is the multiplication, 35. Is your equals 7. We just went through how to get rid of multiplications. To get rid of multiplications, you would divide. So you would divide both sides by 35, cancels those out. X would be 7 divided by 35. When you do that division, you get 0.2. However, remember when you're calculating the percent, you got to move your decimal 2 places. Since there aren't 2 decimals there, you got to add a 0. So our final answer would be 20%. All right. And then last up, you see they have 48 is what percent of 160? All right, so we're focusing on this one now. All right, the 48, of course, is 48. Is equals. What, of course, is the x? Percent of is your multiplication, 160. All right. You would then do 48 divided by 160 to solve for the x. All right, 48 divided by 160. All right, gives you 0.3. And remember, when you turn it into a percent, you got to move it 2 places, so 30%. All right, I hope all of that helps. Stay healthy, and we will talk to each other soon, I'm sure.